Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Dan and Joe Sports Show. As always, I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.
All right, Joe, the Saints made a blockbuster trade deal with the Eagles. And of course, it leads those of us who are gullible enough, myself included, to believe that they're actually going to do something cool in the first round. Maybe get a quarterback, maybe get a receiver. But of course, in the back of my mind, I expect they're going to do something stupid like draft a middle linebacker or a cornerback at positions that they've already got a lot of depth at. And of course, leave me on draft day to pull out my hair.
Right. It's either an extra opportunity to hit a home run or two opportunities to mess it up both times, however you want to look at it. And yeah, I mean, it kind of goes with their MO under Mickey Loomis, the general manager, in the sense that, over the last 15 years, they always like to move up prior to a draft. Only differently here, they're doing it, like a month before the draft.
Yeah, that's true. Usually it is on draft day when you see them trade away their whole draft for Ricky Williams, trade up a lot of picks to get that defensive lineman who hasn't really done a whole lot since he's been there. There's been brief glimpses. I don't know, trade 4 picks away to get a tight end that's been rarely used. These are just some of the examples that I have, and I could go on and on. I think we traded a lot to get Reggie Bush that year too, which that was probably, in terms of all the picks we've had, one of the more successful ones, sadly. But Joe, the question is, what does this mean? So there's two lines of thought. Conventional wisdom would tell you they just re-signed Jameis Winston. You can argue whether you like that or not. They lost their left tackle, and obviously there is a glaring need at the wide receiver position. I would say conventional wisdom says this means you're going to go left tackle or wide receiver with these 2 first-round picks.
That's what I would do, because I don't want them to overreach for a quarterback in the first round unless you can get the right guy, which I think both of us think is Matt Corral. But the last thing you want to do is overreach and get somebody like Ritter, where you kind of waste the first round pick and then you don't address the O-line.
Yeah, Joe, you and I were talking about it a little bit before the show. I mean, Ritter's obviously a great story, and he's put up some very good numbers, won a lot of games at Cincinnati. But, the bottom line is when you look at the way he performed against the best teams that they played, the Alabamas, the Notre Dames, wasn't really, a great effort. So when he played against Georgia, he looked subpar to me. And if you're a guy that I'm going to reach for in the first round, it shouldn't be your fault that your team's lost the game. You should be putting the ball in the money. You should be showing there should be aggressive play calling that's due to the fact that you're that excellent of a quarterback. I mean, we saw when Josh Allen was at Wyoming, he didn't have a whole lot around him, but the man was still out there slinging it, and he did good when he has opportunities to play solid D1 opponents.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely it. We did not see anything from Ritter that blew us away in big-time performances on the biggest stage. And so, yeah, that leads me to believe that there's questions about his stock going forward. So definitely hoping the Saints don't overreach for him. And I'm not really sold on this trade to begin with, Dan. Like, I really probably would have preferred the Saints just to hold on to what they had. I get kind of nervous about them, due to their history of aggressive tendencies not working out. Kind of nervous about, this trade for them.
Absolutely, Joe. And I mean, you have to think that when it comes to a wide receiver, if they don't go and get a wide receiver now, then how could you possibly not do it? I mean, every year the first round comes around, they don't get a wide receiver. I mean, I think the last time they went and got a first round wide receiver, wasn't it the kid from Oregon State that ultimately?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking Robert Meacham, but you're right. Brandon Cooks.
I think Brandon Cooks is the last one that I can remember, and that was a long time ago.
You're right. It's been a minute. And so, interestingly, you have 2 teams in the first round, the Packers and the Saints, both with 2 first-round picks that, just stubbornly not drafted receivers over the years. And so, like, if neither one of them does it this year, like, it's just not going to happen.
No, I mean, this year you have here are the options you could possibly get in the first round. I mean, you could get Garrett Wilson, you could get Olave, you could get the Penn State receiver that was so good that I saw in person that's escaping my mind right now. Of course, you could get either one of the Alabama wide receivers. I think either one of those were good. I think I would probably go with the Ohio State transfer wide receiver if I was going to have a choice, though. I really, obviously I like, the other one as well, but I think the Ohio State wide receiver transfer would be the one that I would tend to go towards on that. And there's plenty of options when it comes to that. And you would think the Saints aren't going to mess that up, but history says they're still not going to get one of them.
Yeah, kind of afraid they'll just go like O-line and quarterback.
Yeah, and go O-line and completely whiff on the quarterback. I think you and I both agree that Matt Corral is the one that we would want. Looking outside of Corral, I think I would be fine with Malik Willis to be my number two choice out of the available quarterbacks. Kenny Pickett doesn't do it for me. Yet again, he's a cool story. It's kind of interesting that he's as old as he is. He's been around so long. He's done it at a place that back in the 80s and, the 80s and 70s was a great program, but really kind of fell apart for most of the last 30 years, with the exception of the Larry Fitzgerald years. And lately, Pat Narduzzi is really doing some great things at Pittsburgh. But, Kenny Pickett, he's got moxie. He's interesting, but yet again, I just never saw the ability there that much. And it really kind of bothered me too that he opted out of that Pittsburgh game against Michigan State. And I'll tell you why that bothers me, because that's the biggest game that they've had probably since the 80s. Seriously, and in my mind, you have to play in that game. Matt Corral played in the game. You could argue, well, look, he got hurt and it almost destroyed his draft stock. Well, that's true, but he showed that he really cared about his team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially in this day and age of load management across sports. I don't like that at all. And so, Pittsburgh, this is not, like they're an Alabama program, that's in a bowl game like that every year. That was their shining moment, and he just didn't even, show up. And so that I did not understand that either.
Absolutely, Joe. And speaking of one shining moment, when it comes to Auburn, you had both Walker Kessler and then just yesterday, Jabari Smith opted to go for the draft. Neither one of those is a big surprise. Obviously, Jabari Smith was one that we knew was going to do it. But I will say, as someone that likes to be a jack of all trade and editing and making their own videos and doing podcasts like what we're doing right now, I was quite impressed with Jabari Smith's video. He did. Now, he says at the very end that he wrote and directed it. So I'm going to have to say he puts the creative license out there. So I'm assuming that, he did some of it. I'm sure there was a lot of help from the Auburn athletics department in creating it, but the video in it's really nice. Some of it's in black and white, shows a lot of cool, images of him and Coach Pearl, all throughout the season. And I just thought that the way he did it was very classy. And I kind of like, too, that he waited just a little bit after the game to announce it. And, after he had his worst game of his career, he didn't just say afterwards, well, deuces, y'all, I'm off the NBA.
Yeah, it makes it look like, you gave some reflection. You didn't rush into a decision, even though, we knew what his decision was presumably going to be. He definitely handled it respectfully.
Absolutely. And, Joe, on that subject, too, we have, LSU, of course, with firing Will Wade. Now they've gone out and hired the Murray State head coach. That there's going to be, at least supposedly, there's going to be some NCAA sanctions. That they launched these level 1 allegations, and you think something's going to happen, but then when does anything ever actually happen? And of course, now Congress is thinking about changing the rules when it comes to the NCAA, so maybe LSU escapes the gun yet again. But regardless, Joe, it seems like, the LSU players are scared about what's going to happen. As in, every single one of the starting LSU basketball players is now on the transfer portal. And it's also filtered down into the recruiting, as LSU's biggest recruit, Justin Traore, and I mean biggest as in the highest ranked and big, I think he's 7 feet tall, has changed his commitment from LSU to Auburn. So Bruce Pearl is getting a huge boost out of the Will Wade investigation. And I'm sure there's going to be some other recruits that were probably pretty highly touted that LSU had a chance at that are now going to go elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something you worry about when you have an investigation pending with your program. And also, in addition, it's just something you worry about right now with the current state of the transfer portal. Like I think it was today or yesterday with Nolan Smith, the assistant and former Duke player, taking a job as an assistant with Louisville. Now suddenly Duke's concerned that some of their top recruits who were recruited by Nolan Smith may decide to go to Louisville. They're worried about hanging on to him. And so that's just kind of another example of what LSU's dealing with. But especially, it's even worse for LSU because of the investigation with the NCAA.
It is interesting, Joe, because one of the big things that's being put out there, I guess, when you could say in the Duke spin, if you will, with Coach K leaving, is that John Shire is bringing in the #1 overall recruiting class. And that while they may have lost to North Carolina twice in the last month and Coach K may be gone, don't worry, they got the #1 recruiting class coming in. And if Nolan Smith, who is supposed to be just a wonder kid recruiter, if he actually does get some of those players to follow him to Louisville, suddenly this huge feather in his cap that John Shire had going in is away, and the pressure ramps up that much more.
Yeah, and it's a weird dynamic because these are two guys, Shire and Smith, that were former teammates on Duke's championship team in 2010. And so you're kind of wondering, what's going on with their friendship and partnership there for Smith to leave. And then furthermore, to your point, Smith is a great recruiter. He brought in R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson, for instance.
Yeah, and that was an amazing recruiting class and probably the best class of freshmen that Duke ever had.
Yep, absolutely.
And Joe, speaking of people who are presumably going to be fabulous freshmen, and we're keeping with the Louisiana theme, there's some Arch Manning news out there. And for people that are not Alabama fans, this is not positive Arch Manning news. When it comes to Arch Manning, all the Ole Miss fans are excited about the fact that, hey, he's a legacy. Maybe he'll come there. I know Georgia put in a lot of work early on. I'm thinking probably Matt Luke had something to do with that. And they were big-time favorites. A lot of word was out there about Sark and Texas maybe getting the lead with him. But I saw that Arch is about to take his third visit in the last few months to Alabama, and that suddenly the nebulous crystal ball of 24/7 sports now has Alabama with a sizable advantage at landing the services of one Arch Manning.
Yeah, I mean, it's a few thoughts there. I mean, at this point, Ole Miss is clearly, not in the lead. Alabama seems to be. And I do think that there's something to be said about Ole Miss getting Jackson Dart, where while, you like it, at the same time, he might be there 2 or 3 more years. And Bryce Young has, one more year at Alabama. So that would work out perfectly for Arch Manning's arrival the very next year to take over as the starter from day one. So I think that appeals to him. And it's also my understanding that his dad and him really like working with Nick Saban. And I've also heard that if Nick Saban was just a little bit younger, that this would have already been a done deal. Like the only reason they're even on the fence a little bit is just, how long is he going to coach long term? But at the same time, if you can get Arch Manning, that will definitely probably excite even Nick Saban, to stay on as long as possible.
And Joe, I think that if they got Arch Manning, there's not a doubt in my mind that Nick Saban would coach until the last snap that Arch Manning takes.
Yep. I think you're right.
And I think that, you want to talk about Coach K's swan song going to the Final Four, you would think that, wouldn't Nick Saban love to maybe get one last national championship and do it with Arch Manning?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, what I would love as an Auburn fan is for him to get Arch Manning and then to do exactly what North Carolina did to Duke, with Auburn making a college football playoff and then beating Arch Manning and Nick Saban. If that were to happen, Joe, then I would be very happy for Arch Manning to go play at Alabama, just so that I could witness the sheer insanity that would happen if that were to actually occur.
And who knows? He may even transfer away, to wherever he goes at some point.
That's true. All I can say, Joe, is Harvey Updike destroyed the trees when Cam Newton beat Alabama and Auburn ended up winning the national championship that year. If that were to happen, you might be able to put armed guards outside of Sanford Hall to watch out for people trying to burn it down. That's how angry people would be.
Right. No kidding. No kidding.
All right, Joe. Speaking of angry, Tiger Woods has been quite angry in his pursuit to get back to golf. And suddenly, Joe, we might be seeing Tiger Woods play in the Masters starting tomorrow, which, I mean, you want to talk about just a dogged pursuit of trying to get back healthy. I mean, he almost lost his leg, and now we're seeing him going to possibly play golf in the major to end all majors.
Yeah, no doubt, Dan. And what I wanted to ask you about that is, where does this rank for you as far as just like sports stories or human stories kind of defying the odds at this point?
Well, Joe, I mean, you think about all the stories that Tiger Woods has had. Most of his his biggest stories, I think, have been the Masters. From his very first major that he won in 1997, when he won by 20 plus strokes at the age of 21, to him not having won a major for 11 years. And then suddenly in 2019, he gets that major and gets just two away from Jack Nicklaus. And you want to say it's impossible that he could win this. Joe, it's very, very, very unlikely, but I'm not going to sit here and say impossible, because I've seen this guy do things that frankly just didn't seem possible before. And so, I mean, it just seems like it would be the most poetic thing ever for him to somehow go out there and win. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm saying, wouldn't it be amazing if he did? Like, suddenly the Coach K story will become an afterthought in this year's sports universe if Tiger Woods were to do that.
Yeah, it'd be like a home run, slam dunk for comeback, player of the year, athlete for the ESPYs come this summer. I heard the press conference the other day. We were just talking about playing on Thursday. Have you read anything from people that have watched him as far as like how he looks, as far as how well he's practicing?
Well, Joe, I've heard that his swing looks excellent, and that it's actually got a little less torque to it than usual, putting a lot less pressure on his back and legs. Because, the thing with Tiger is, it's not just his leg that, of course, he almost lost. And then, of course, he had that knee surgery in 2008. It's the back that's really the most pervasive issue with Tiger. He's had at least 5 back surgeries. And a lot of that was due to how violent his swing used to be. Now, of course, that made it to where he can knock at a country mile, but that also affected his ability to probably play at a high level for as long as, maybe he could have if he had a little bit of a less impactful swing.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So I've heard that the swing looks quite good. The problem that he has, Joe, and something I really do think they need to work on professional golf, is he's going to have to walk the entire course. Mm-hmm. And the Augusta is actually one of the more difficult courses to walk. There's a lot of plains to it, a lot of slopes. It's not an easy walk, even for people that are in regular shape. And, my thing is, I really wish that Tiger Woods would get the waiver to use a golf cart to be able to play. They won't offer it very often. The last time that I remember seeing someone actually get a waiver to play in a PGA event with a golf cart was Casey Martin. And that's because he had a congenital disease that made it to where he was borderline paralyzed, and he was still able to play, but he couldn't walk for great distances. And I feel like, this is a perfect example of, if Tiger Woods' swing is really that good, why do you want to deny everybody from the chance to see him play if he has to forfeit and get out because he just can't walk that anymore?
Mm-hmm. Do you know if he applied for a waiver, or if there's any chance that can still happen?
Joe, I haven't heard anything to suggest that he did apply for a waiver. And the way that they are, I think he would have had to apply for it a long time ago to grant it. And I just don't see them doing it.
I got you. But no, that's certainly a good point. That could certainly be something that would make it difficult, and, something you just don't think about that often. But I am curious, as far as just the field in general, with Tiger obviously in the equation too, since he's playing, thankfully. What would you tell our listeners about, the favorites for this tournament, or kind of like how you see the trajectory of the golfers?
Well, Joe, I think that while the story is, of course, going to rightfully so be on Tiger Woods, I'd look for a guy who has never won a major to be the guy that ultimately comes out and wins this. And, Joe, my favorite right now is probably the most secret world number one that we've ever had in the history of golf, and that's Scottie Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler has won 5 times this year. He's a guy that has placed well in the majors the last couple years, but hasn't broken through yet. And I kind of look for him to maybe get his first green jacket and break through as a major winner.
Okay. Now, so he catapulted up the rankings just in this calendar year?
Yes, just in this calendar year by winning, I believe, 5 times this year. Now, he had won tournaments in the past, not a lot of them, but he was somebody that had placed really well. And he kind of showed up in the majors. It was the first time that anyone had heard of him. And he's just been on a tear lately. And I think when you're playing that kind of golf, Augusta opens itself up to someone like you.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I read where he went to Texas, and so I was wondering even if he knew Jordan Spieth in college or if they were there at the same time.
Joe, they would not have been there at the same time. Jordan Spieth is about 3 or 4 years older than Scottie Scheffler. But I can tell you this, that Texas golf program is loaded when you look at major winners and people that have been at the top of the game. Jordan Spieth's a Texas golfer. Brooks Koepka is a Texas golfer. Now you got Scottie Scheffler, and it is truly just an excellent golf collegiate program.
It sounds like it for sure. Speaking of colleges, how is that guy from Wake Forest? How do you think he's going to do this year?
Are you talking about Zalatoris?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Zalatoris is someone that he showed up at the end of last season doing really well. And, Joe, I could see him maybe winning a major this year, but I don't think this is the one that I would look for him to win. I would maybe look more for an opportunity like the PGA Championship to see Zalatoris break through and win one. I don't think his game is as well suited for Augusta as it is for maybe a course like what you get at the PGA.
Gotcha. Are there any other surprising candidates do you think people should watch?
Well, Joe, this is one that I think is probably, maybe a little bit biased, but I would look for Sergio Garcia to make a run. Maybe not necessarily win, but maybe have a good showing. He's been having a little bit more success lately. Obviously, he's won the green jacket before 5 years ago. And I think that's someone that maybe you could look for to have a top 10 showing. And another one that I would like, Joe, and this is someone that, definitely has been really close to winning and had a great chance at winning one last year. I think Louis Oosthuizen is going to break through and win a major this year. And I kind of think that maybe the Masters might be that as well.
Okay. That'd be really good. I feel like I've heard about him for years. So you said he has not yet won a major?
No, Louis Oosthuizen has won a major, but he is almost a perennial bridesmaid. He has finished in second place, I believe, 11 times.
Oh, wow.
And he's won a couple majors. I think he's won 2 U.S. Opens, but he's never won the Masters before. And then last year, he blew the chance at winning a British Open when he had I think a 4 or 5 stroke lead going in the final round.
Oh, wow. Definitely sounds like he's due then.
Yeah, so I think that he's going to break through and win another major. And he's probably someone that if the breaks had been right, he might have 5 or 6 majors at this point, but instead he's sitting there at that 2 mark.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So those are definitely people to look for. I mean, Brooks Koepka is always someone that just really comes to play when it comes to majors. And especially maybe if you saw Jordan Spieth and Scottie Scheffler playing good, maybe Brooks Koepka is going to want to up his game to beat out his other Texas pros.
Mm-hmm. Is there anybody that you're hearing people say they're hyping up that you think is maybe just not completely going to perform to that level?
Joe, I'll tell you who I don't think is gonna win or really have a great showing is Jon Rahm. Jon Rahm has been somebody that's been the world's number one. Of course, he won a major last year, and just what a great guy, and someone that represents the country of Spain so well. He hasn't been playing quite as well as he had been last year. There was so much emotion in him winning that major at Pebble Beach, and I kind of see not Pebble Beach, it's San Diego. And yeah. I kind of see Jon Rahm maybe not having quite the showing and maybe not even making the cut.
Gotcha. Yeah, I heard about him. I was looking at a Masters preview from CBS Sports or somebody today, and he was mentioned kind of at that forefront. And so, that's definitely interesting. And we'll see how he projects.
And Joe, the other one that I would look for to maybe not do as well as people would hope would be Phil Mickelson. I know Mickelson, did get a major win. What was that last season that just shocked everybody? But I
forgot about that.
Yeah, it just kind of came out of nowhere, and he was the oldest player to win a major. But he's someone that I think is definitely going to struggle, and I would be surprised if he made the cut.
Yeah, was it the PGA Championship he won last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely interested, to see how it transpires. As people that listen to our show know, I'm the type of person I'll watch the Masters, but that's the main event I'll watch. And I'm definitely still intrigued about, seeing how that final round, especially on Sunday goes. And, especially like everybody else, just seeing how Tiger looks.
Yeah, Joe. I mean, I think that really, if you want to be a realistic person, what would be a huge win for Tiger is to finish and make the cut. And I think it's a great win for him to go out there and be able to walk for 2 days and not retire. And it is an astounding achievement if he makes the cut. And that's
Mhm.
what I think golfers need to, the golf fans need to temper their expectations and have that, because I mean, this is a massive reconstructive surgery he's coming back from. And if he is able to do that, and then if we take it one step further, Joe, and not only does he make the cut, he finishes out and is able to keep playing all 4 days. That is a great sign for things to come, that he's gonna be back in some form.
Right, right. It's kind of like a situation, where you're just glad he's out there, because I read an article today too that said that, people were just kind of hoping not only would he just live from the accident, but maybe one day he'd be able to go out there with his, kids and play golf like recreationally, much less, ever have a chance to compete at this level.
Right, Joe. I think at this point, what the Tiger that we were expecting to see is more of the mentor to his son, who appears to have inherited a lot of his natural ability and effort. And of course, dogged determination. You saw them playing together. I think that was more what I think people were starting to expect that maybe they'd see out of Tiger. And so, like I said, this is an absolute miracle that we're going to see him tomorrow.
Right, right. Absolutely.
Joe, speaking of miracles, it seems like it's a miracle that we're going to see Major League Baseball coming up this season. There have been a lot of talks, a lot of shutdowns. Seemed like the players were on strike again, and we weren't going to have a season. And it looks like everything got resolved, and now we're going to have Major League Baseball. So give me your kind of thoughts about opening weekend.
Yeah. So the only downside is I don't understand why they decided once the lockout was resolved to schedule opening day for the same day as round one of the Masters. I would have either done it the day before, or quite frankly, probably waited till Monday of next week just to not have that, rating scheduling conflict. But regardless, though, I am, happy they're having a season. Just a couple of things I would say to look for. Very interested, as a Braves fan. I know that, our show's always biased. And so definitely interested to see how the Braves do in their tour as the defending champs, and see if they have a chance to repeat this year. They're going to have largely a lot of the same nucleus, but of course, missing the heart and soul of the team, and Freddie Freeman now with the Dodgers. And I know that they replaced him with Matt Olson, who, had great numbers last year, 39 home runs. So it looks like, offensively, you've got somebody on that level. But I do think there's going to be something to be said about missing out on Freddie Freeman's leadership. But aside from the Braves, the other story I'm kind of looking at, Dan, is I'm interested to see how the American League East plays out. I really think that there are 3 or 4 really good teams in that division, with the Rays, with the Blue Jays, with the Red Sox, and with the Yankees. And so I think that a trendy pick that I'm hearing for the World Series is the Blue Jays. They've got Vladimir Guerrero, senior son, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on the team. He's kind of a heavy favorite to win the MVP this year. And so they have a lot of offensive talent. People are just kind of high on this team. I don't know what to think about it, though. I'm not quite as convinced. Like, I could see them making the playoffs, but I'm not sure if I'm sold on the Blue Jays, with kind of, the up and down history of that franchise being the front runner for the World Series. And I can tell you in a second kind of where I'm leaning as far as my World Series prediction.
Yeah, Joe, that would seem to me, people that are predicting the Blue Jays to win the World Series, kind of like when suddenly everyone thought the Angels were going to win the World Series when they got Mike Trout. I mean, it was still the Angels, who were a franchise that, to be honest, hadn't had a whole lot of success.
Right, right, absolutely. Like it's kind of similar to the Blue Jays. Got a championship or two, but you don't see that consistency year in and year out. In the Blue Jays, finally, they lost a couple of key players to free agency. They lost Marcus Semien, their star second baseman, who hit like 40-something home runs last year. And they lost the best pitcher in the American League last year, who signed with Seattle. And so I just think they're going to miss players like that. And so for that reason, I'm actually probably going to pick Tampa Bay to win that division. And as far as the World Series, I'm going to predict, Dan, that the Chicago White Sox win the American League. and I think they will take on the same old, the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. And my prediction is that the Chicago White Sox will win the World Series this year. The main reason for that is they're coached by Tony La Russa. And I think that having the talent on this roster with the pedigree of a Tony La Russa, we talk about all these great head coaches that are either retired or nearing retirement. He's as good of a manager as he gets when it comes to Major League Baseball. And I just feel like the White Sox are positioned well to win a World Series for La Russa.
It's hard to believe the La Russa is going to manage again. I mean, he's got to be like in the 70s. I mean, he's been around for so long.
Yep. He's 76 or 77. And this is his second year back. And I feel like, it's one of those things where if he can get that championship, he would, be content to go ahead and retire in the sunset.
Yeah, and he did a great job, of course, with the Cardinals, won a couple World Series with them, and just someone that's been a mainstay in Major League for so long. And yeah, that is kind of a game changer right there. But Joe, I'm going to go a little bit out in left field right here, and I'm going to pick the Tampa Bay Rays to win the World Series. They've been so close so many times lately. Tampa Bay has, become title city with the Bucks winning the Super Bowl, with, of course, the Lightning winning a couple Stanley Cups. And the Rays have gotten there but haven't quite finished the job. And I feel like you're going to see a repeat of the World Series a couple years ago when the Rays took on the Dodgers, except this time I see title town Tampa Bay getting the World Series rings.
That would definitely be a great matchup. I've been rooting for Tampa Bay to win a World Series for a long time. I like them even back when they had guys like Evan Longoria on the team, and they were managed by Joe Madden. Yeah, the Rays, to me, like I said earlier, I really think they're going to win the AL East this year, because the player to watch for them too, Dan, is Wander Franco, who is 21 years old. He is a wonder kid. Like, that guy's a shortstop, explosive player, 5-tool player. I think he's going to be a joy to watch this year. And I think that Wander Franco and their offense and the pitching staff of the Rays, I think they could go far this year. Would not surprise me if they made a deep run.
All right, Joe, before we get off Major League Baseball, why don't you tell our listeners, is Ronald Acuna going to be good for the regular season for the Braves? What are we looking at with his recovery from his injury?
Yeah, so great question. It's my understanding that he's going to miss the first few weeks of the season. And then when he comes back, hopefully in the latter part of April, he's going to be the DH for a period of time before transitioning back into the field. The luxury for the Braves, of course, is they can bring him back earlier because the National League now has the designated hitter.
And that's a good thing, to get that great bat back in the lineup without having to use all of his other abilities and give him a little bit of rest. Because, I mean, he is just truly an excellent player, and it's still so shocking the Braves won the World Series, essentially without him.
Yeah, I still cannot digest that. Like, I don't know what's crazier, the fact that Freddie Freeman's not there or the fact that they won it without Acuna.
I don't know. Such as the Braves. They could be crazy things. You can win 19 division titles in a row and only win one World Series. You can be below 500 for a large majority of the season and then suddenly win a World Series.
Yeah, just unbelievable.
But such as the Braves. And we'll chop on to the next subject. And we want to thank everybody for listening to Dan and Joe's Sports Show. You can catch all of our episodes on Spotify. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've been uploading a lot of videos of podcasts recently. Of course, you can also follow us on Twitter at DJ Sports Show and like our Facebook fan page. And as always, I'm Dan.
And I'm Joe.